Okay. All right. So I want to start this session off. We're continuing with Belize, where I was the photographer for a scientific expedition down there in the rainforest for about 3 weeks. I met this guy, and I'm sorry, this was one of the guys that was on our trip. And obviously, over the time course, I got to learn a lot about him. And he was a fascinating person. He was from Hungary originally. It was a very communist country when he was there. He was always had an interest in animals. He worked at a zoo, taught himself how to learn English. And this is a terrible picture of him, but he had, when he was in the zoo in Hungary, he studied monkeys. They had monkeys that would get what his boss thought was a cyst, so they would slice it off. When this guy learned English, he was getting different books that he could, of course, this was before, I don't even know when he was doing all this, but obviously it was before 1990, which is when I met him, so no internet, but he was ordering books, learning about monkeys, figuring out what was going on. Well, the cyst that they were slicing off turned out to be the swollen ovaries of the female monkeys before they went into pregnancy. He told his boss this. His boss did not like that he was learning more than he did. Again, very Russian, very communist at the time. So his boss reported him, and which put his life in danger. So he took his wife, one child, and at midnight said goodbye to both their sets of parents and escaped the country so that he wouldn't be murdered. He was a refugee in a couple of places. He got to Canada and pled to be in the U.S. Not pled, that's not the right word, but anyway, he kept applying to be in the U.S. because he wanted to study monkeys. And he was so intelligent, so committed. He was in my opinion, he was the real scientist on this group. And this was a dream come true. He had risked his life to learn about monkeys, and we were now in the rainforest in Belize studying them. He was just as happy as he could possibly be. And so that plays into factor later on in the trip, but he just was an amazing person. Some of these were kind of repeats from the other one. I just wanted to show what life was like where we were there in the jungle. We had to take baths down here in the by the river, and this is him. He was comfortable. He knew everything that existed down there. So he was going in for a swim. He took us all out for a night hike. Let's go back one. And he took us out and found, okay, yeah, from there see if we can go one. It's an old slide projector, so see if it'll go just one. And then if we can focus that. So the thing that was so cool on this night hike, okay, so you got to keep in mind, it was the jungle, there were jaguars, there are monkeys, there's spiders, there's all kinds of things that can eat you, kill you. We had already passed over one of these snakes the day before that would have killed us if it had opened its mouth and struck us. But he was unafraid because he knew those woods. He knew all these things that lived in there. And this was something that he pointed out, which I thought was pretty cool looking. It looks a little bit like a flower, but then if you get a little closer, these are butterflies asleep at night. Looks like the daytime because I used my flash and this was my first photography expedition, right? Okay, so they weren't super great, but if you look closely, these are all the little antennae of the different butterflies. So there was a stick, and they all pointed their little heads in together and combined themselves into this flower shape, and that's how they slept during the night. This was this little small creature right here. It's about that size, and then shoo, shoo, those are these huge antennae that it had. There's another one, I didn't get a picture of it, but he stuck his hand in the crevice of a tree, and because he intentionally wanted to pull this creature that was living in there out. And there's just where we were swimming in the bathing, one of the things you had to be careful about was staying how long you were in the water, because in that part of the country they have these like shrimp fish. I don't even know what they're called, but I know they can go right up your bunghole, and you can get very, very terminally, maybe not terminally, but extremely sick. And so there's a lot of things alive in the rainforest that can get you, and this dude was completely at ease. This tree, we were walking in the rainforest at night, right? We had a few lights. We were following him, and this is some of the stuff that we had to look out for. This is a tree with all these 2, 4, 5-inch long thorns that would just like shred your skin. Then there was another tree that we went by, and this one, if you happen to cut into it, this is all poisonous sap that was coming out of it. There's another one that he showed us about. These are these beautiful flowers that we found out there at night. It was just amazing having this expert take us around who was in heaven. It was the greatest experience of his life up to that point because he had worked so hard for it. This is just some wet, oozy, amazing flower that's down there. I don't remember what it was called. And this one is another very odd type of tree that has these strange barbs that will get you. They aren't like thorns, but I tried to take a few pictures of them. So you're just walking along, and it's pretty much at shin level, ankle level, thigh level. Like, stuff will come out and get you. So I stuck next to the Hungarian friend. There were only one of the other people went with us. They're like, we're not going out into the jungle in the middle of the night. And this is another plant. I'm not sure what was growing on this tree, but there was a lot of crazy things that we saw. That one might be upside down. All right, so this is just a little bit going forward on other things that we saw in the daytime on a hike, trying to figure out where to go, how to gather ourselves together and go forward, see different stuff. This is this super cool thing that, again, Hungarian knew about. These are vines. If you slice the vine open, it has fresh water in it, so you can just drink water as you're going along. And this is a close-up of the vine itself that is the kind that you look for, that just holds fresh water in it. One of the things that I remember that's kind of crass about the rainforest is when you went out, you took your shovel, dug yourself a little cat hole, and had to do your business there. As soon as you began to get things coming out of your body, the flies and the bugs started swarming. So you needed to make sure that you really had to do what you had to do, and you had to do it quickly, because otherwise you're trying to get things out of your body and there's just creatures trying to get at it. It was pretty gross. The water was super amazing in some parts of it. This is pretty up close parts about, that one might be sideways, flip your head. But then these are the little tadpoles. I don't think those are the ones that crawl up your bunghole, because the ones that crawl up are tiny, you can't even see them. But those are like little frogs coming along. So part of what was going down while we were there, obviously we were seeing amazing things. We were in this incredible location. Like I mentioned in the first one on Belize, there were no other humans allowed in this area. There's nothing like that I know of in the United States, where, except during like nesting season and certain periods, we will close off areas. But this preserve was always set aside just for animals and the wildlife. That people weren't allowed in there. We had a scientific permit to get in there. Our British dude that was in charge, because his friend had broken his ankle in 6 places, it kind of set the trip a little bit askew. When the head guy came back, he was somewhat frazzled. He didn't like our campsite originally. He was just kind of doing things that weren't very smart. We were sitting in the kitchen one time, and he got his machete out and started whacking at this stick. A root, and it was right next to my foot. The Hungarian guy was really very upset about it, as were the other two people, because he should never have been doing that. It was really dangerous. There was another time when we were at the caves where the monkeys are, where we were kind of hidden behind where the monkeys hang out. We had a steep terrain that went straight down. I was sitting on the edge, as was the young Mayan guide that we had. Oh, we'll hang here for a second. And the British guy came running up, clawing up the hill, and almost barreled both of us over. He could have gone to the other side. Anyway, he was acting fairly irresponsible at various times during the trip. So we were still seeing cool stuff. This was on another hike that we were on during the day. Is that a focus? This in and of itself is fascinating. The Guatemalans would come up through the jungle from Guatemala into Belize. They would make these shelters. So we had tents. We had carried everything on our backs to get in here. These guys came in with a machete and bags. Then they just built themselves these temporary shelters out of everything that they found right there in the rainforest. It was just a really quick thing, and the way that it's set up is these are their beds that they put down here, and everything was just, they took sticks and whacked them off and built the supports for them. It was pretty amazing. So it's a very comfortable, completely dry shelter. The reason that they were doing this is they were in here stealing plants. There's illegal plant horticulture operations that take place. So they would go into the jungle, find some of those orchids and various plants that are there and that you'll see as we keep going along. But that was their bed, just incredibly strong, sturdy. It's last, and eventually it would decay back into the plants there. But it was very illegal, some of the things that they were stealing. This is just a picture of what it's like to walk in the rainforest, that there's roots and knots and vines and everything everywhere. So we were a little concerned when we found that Guatemalan shelter. We did not find any of them, but they knew that they were doing illegal things, so we were kind of in danger. They were certainly going to be better adept at using their machetes than I was. But we didn't see them. That's just a pretty amazing tiny little hairs on the back of the leaf. And so more interesting things that you could see, things that could bite you, things that can hurt you. Some of these orchids were in the rainforest. Some of them are in town. I honestly don't remember which ones I took where, but they just have, it's beautiful down there. There's a lot of really amazing things to see, as well as all these crazy things that can come and attack you. There were jaguars there. We did not ever hear any or see any, but they were around. We went back a lot, often to the same cave here where the monkeys were. We would stay for a long time, and we forgot can openers, but it's okay. We had our machetes. This is our Mayan guide. And opening up cans for lunch. When we went back, one time there was a baby there with the monkeys. This was probably one of my favorite shots. All in shadow, again, because I didn't really know what I was doing as a photographer. But we hung out that one time, and the baby was up there, and the baby was clinging to the other ones and walking around. Just as a reminder, these trees are about 100 feet off the ground. We were fairly close to their height because we climbed way up that hill and we're in the cave, but they were just way up there, and it's hard to see, but there's the baby on the back of that dad, and they're just hanging on. You can see them with their little fingers. One time when that one took off and the baby was on, its little head went back, but those hands just gripped hold and learned how to live up there. So this is at our end. I believe we were supposed to be there, I don't even remember now, maybe 6 weeks, but we were all very concerned with our leader's ability to lead. We no longer trusted him. His behavior was really erratic. He said that he was hypoglycemic, and the guy that broke his ankle was supposed to be helping him out. And I thought, you're an adult. If you know you're hypoglycemic, you need to take food with you and eat it when you need to. So we went and had ourselves a little powwow. And this was the mutiny. We abandoned ship. We decided that we did not trust him and we didn't want to stay. The person that I felt the most pain for was the Hungarian who had spent so much of his life to come down and have an influence and be a part of such a experience, which he was, but we weren't there long enough, I feel like, to really have made any difference. We asked our young Mayan guide if he wanted to stay, and he said yes, and we were each concerned for him. He said, don't worry about it. I know these woods. This is my jungle. So if he felt like something was going to happen, he would just have left him. So that was the end of my trip in Belize. We had a mutiny. We left. Several of us went over to Guatemala, and that will be coming up at some point.